Success Mastermind for Monday, the 21st of September, 2020. John here with you. Nobody else said that we're live. Are we in fact live? Yes?
We are live.
Yes. Thank you, Ego. Usually I'm looking for
Where the heck's a reverend, man?
Yeah, somebody to say something. But good to be here with everyone. We've got another thrilling week in front of us. If you're tuning in on our YouTube or Facebook, and you want to get in on some of this action because we got a lot going on here on our calendar, definitely grab yourself a membership at jlsuccessmastermind.com. Today, of course, we got general session, which we had. In fact, last night we kicked off the week with a very interesting conversation on how photography metaphorically can give us instruction in terms of sales and living life. So thank you, Wayne, for the Metaphors for Success broadcast. Of course, today we also have an e-commerce work group with Stuart Wild coming up at 7:30 p.m. and then we wrap up tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern with our book study. We are on chapter 3 of Think and Grow Rich, the chapter on faith. Very important chapter. Well, they're all important, but have read up through chapter 3 before we get on tonight. For those of you joining us live at 9 p.m. Eastern U.S. time, and of course for those of you in other time zones that are not conducive to joining us live. Well, some of you do anyway, right? You just don't sleep. Who cares, right? Who needs sleep? We got to talk philosophy over here. But of course, you can catch the recording inside your members' site. I don't think I have any other announcements today other than that our referral program is live. So if you've got a friend or a couple people that you would like to participate as insiders in this group, you can certainly invite them to do so, and be compensated as well for doing such things. So we believe in exchange here and entrepreneurship, and servants worth is higher and all that. So if you're going to go ahead and promote this whole conversation, this mission, I like to call this a conversation of success, because there's plenty of other conversations that are going on that are not so success oriented. Perhaps you've noticed. You just turn on mainstream media, but or social media, or pretty much. It's pretty ubiquitous, right? I mean, everywhere you look, right? There's plenty of people that are happy to let you know how not able you are, how less than you are, how you should expect trouble in your life, right? So I'm thinking, well, for those who are purveyors of not chaos and victimhood, but those who are purveyors of self-determinism and leadership, let's go ahead and make sure that you're compensated for that as well. So that's where I'm going with all that. Which brings me to our topic for today, which I think you're going to be thrilled with. It's sort of a theme for the week. I'm not sure where it's going to go with our co-hosts, right? Our other facilitators, because this is not just about me lecturing you and asserting my rightness every day. No, we've got people here like Adrian, who's going to be hosting tomorrow. Of course, Glenn on Wednesday, and Wayne on Thursday. And so I want to kick off the week with an idea which they may or may not take and run with, and that's the idea of expectation. I know Adrian and a few of us, Evelyn, right? We were talking about this, Susanna, we were talking about this on our end of week session that we have on Friday evenings, right? To just kind of see, here's what we talked about. Here's any ideas that people have, questions if that you want to be heard, right? So we do that. That's how we wrap up our week here in the Mastermind group. And the idea that came up for me was expectation, because one of the things that I truly want, fervently want for everyone who's, whether you're involved in this group or not, right? You may just be an onlooker. You may have just stumbled across a video or replay or something, and you're just getting turned on to this whole conversation for the first time. Welcome. Okay. Well, one of the things that I want for anyone who chooses to engage in this conversation and chooses to put their attention, because you only have so much of it. You can spend it here, you can spend it there. If you're choosing to invest your attention on something like, how can I be more effective in my life, right? Let me go learn something. Oh, well, bravo, right? Let me honor that. And one of the things that I fervently want for you is that, yes, you can, that bears fruit, right? That it's not just us sitting around philosophizing about how life works or doesn't, right? That there's actually fruit on the tree. That's the end result. That's the observable phenomenon that we desire. We want to see the fruit on the tree. I'm going to tell you a story, and I think we can go down this rabbit hole a little bit, and I definitely want to hear how you can use this in your life. Because once again, it's not about us just philosophizing. How does it show up for real, like in practice? So there's this group of people wandering through the desert. This may have been biblical. I don't know, Old Testament. Maybe Moses was the leader. I don't know. But anyway, they're dying of thirst, right? They need water. It's the desert. Okay. And the leader goes and he's going up the hill or whatever to think. And he comes back down, and the people say, our God has forsaken us. We have no rain, right? We need water. And so the leader says, well, pray to your God for water. And he goes off and he does his thing, comes back in a couple days or whatever it was. And he comes back and it hasn't rained. And they're like, God has forsaken us. It hasn't rained. It hasn't rained. And the leader said, well, where are the ditches? And they said, well, what are you talking about? The ditches. He said, well, if you expected it to rain, you would have dug the ditches. Where are the ditches? You got to collect the water, right? So expectation was not there. We may think that we can, call up the cosmic bellboy or something and say, hey, we want rain, or we want riches, success in life, insert whatever that means for you here, right? We all live in, at least everyone who's here on the internet with us, you also have running water. You're in good shape with that, right? There wouldn't be a city known as Phoenix, Arizona without such things, right? We got a Colorado River and they canal the water in, and there's a little bit of groundwater as well. But water is a big deal, a big deal in the desert, or even not in the desert. Now, if you live in a rainforest or something where you can just look up and open your mouth and you can get water every day because it rains every day, well, that's a different scenario, right? You may be praying for sun. But the idea that if we really expected it to rain, we would have dug the ditches. And so, ye of little faith, right? Or I could say, me of little faith. How many times have I failed to dig the ditches in my life? Yes, I have an intention. Yes, I'm showing up here to somehow edify and uplift myself so I can, perform better or get a better result or whatever. But did I dig the ditches? Did I expect it to rain? I've heard other people tell that story better than me, by the way, but that's, I think, pretty impactful. Right? Pretty impactful when an outsider, in this case, the leader, who's really an insider, but he can objectively see something so obvious, you would have dug the ditches if you expected your prayer to be answered. There's something out of, now we'll go New Testament. This isn't a Judeo-Christian conversation, but that's the theology that I grew up in, having grown up in the West. And there's something that Matthew wrote from the Sermon on the Mount where Jesus said, ask and it shall be given you. Seek and you shall find. Knock and it shall be opened unto you. It didn't say ask and maybe if it's convenient, you might get what you're looking for. It said shall ask and it shall be given you. Like that's it. Like that's exactly how it works. So when we think about how is our prayer answered, so to speak? How is it that we can receive more readily? Because that's what a lot of people's minds go to, right? Because they think inaccurately, by the way, that their relationship with a higher power or greater energy is where they request and then it's answered, based on their thoughts about it, based on their their preferences. Okay, a lot of times I don't know the path. That's interesting. Okay, but if I do expect that ask and you shall receive, well, doesn't that release a lot of energy? Doesn't that allow me to, if I truly expect, doesn't that allow me to get on with what's right in front of me, to return to present time and not be so desperate, trying to get like a rat looking for cheese, right? I mean, is that life? Look, for a lot of people, that's life. Rat looking for cheese, right? Scurrying around the dumpster, looking for a piece of garbage or something, right? Quibbling over pennies. But if we truly expect the riches, right? Because I think all of us are entrepreneurs to some degree. And if you're not, maybe you just haven't realized you are, but all of us are self-determined in such a way that we're looking to have an effect in our life. That's an entrepreneurial thing, right? You're putting yourself out there. You're expecting to have some sort of recompense, right? And we can work with the law. In fact, there's a book called Working with the Law by this guy named Ray Hollywell. Maybe we'll put that on our reading list at some point. Okay. But where he's talking about how you really can't break the law, right? So if you're talking about like having reciprocation, or like one example I use a lot is that the tide goes out, therefore the tide comes in, right? You can't break that law. You can only break yourself against the law. Try breaking the law of gravity, jump off the building and try and fly. You can't break that law. You can break yourself. Law always works. Okay. Which is why I'm a bit critical sometimes when people title their books The Law of This or The Law of That. Bullshit. No, hold on. Law always works. You may have a principle, which is really good, or you may have an opinion. Don't call it a law unless you really can prove that. And that's just the author in me coming out. So very careful when I use that word law. But when we think about how the law works in our life, whether we know it or like it or not, we could see objective examples in nature about how the law works. Here's one of them. Perfect example. We throw a seed in the ground. We water it. We don't get upset or desperate when the corn doesn't stalk and bear fruit in 15 minutes. That's just not how it works. One of the laws is the law of gestation, which says there's an incubation period. Actually, it's the law of gender, that there's a gestation or incubation period that exists for everything in life, right? A baby takes about 9 months, right? The carrot takes 5 weeks or whatever it does, right? And we know that we can't violate that law. Now, there are people, we can get into, genetic modified food and, all kinds of wacky scientific farming stuff going on. So we can, work with the law in some ways. Should we? Well, I guess it depends on which way we're talking about. But when it comes right back to what we're expecting to get in our lives, that one thing. So why are we efforting? Why are we showing up? Why are we putting in the work? Why are we outflowing? Because we expect to inflow. Truly, you wouldn't do the work if you didn't expect to have some sort of remuneration, right? Exchange has to happen. And you've seen enough examples of that in your life. I certainly have, to know that, if I go down this road, whether it's business or a relationship or exercise in the gym, if I go down that road, it must bear fruit. Back to the idea of trying to violate law. There are people, and this was a craze for a while. I don't think it's that popular now, but let's take the diet pill. I don't want to have nutrition and exercise. That's too much thinking and effort. Let me take the diet pill to get in shape. Okay. And a lot of people have been disabused of that, falsity. Certainly you can enhance, metabolic, your metabolism speed and everything else with certain things. People eat nutritional supplements and such, but nutrition and exercise are the foundation of fitness, right? You can't violate that law. I don't care how sexy the diet pill is, advertisement is. Okay. So, so thinking about that, can we get back to basics, and can we see, here's the big question. Can we see, how have I failed to expect the abundance of my life? How have I been like the rat looking for cheese, always so desperate to get, and not just releasing my intention? Yes, doing the work. It's not just sitting here and being lofty. Okay, doing the work, getting my hands dirty, but at the same time knowing that the tide went out, therefore it has to come back in, because we get what we expect. People show up in society, right? And certain people. Right. I know, like when I look at Mark, I know what to expect because he occurs in my life a certain way, right? As Mark, I've got an expectation about that. Every time I have a conversation with Mark or Sandy or Ego or Suzanne, who's great to see. So glad to see you, Suzanne. All of you. But every time I have a conversation with one of our members here, for example, it's not like I need to meet them all over again. I know, and I have an expectation about their mannerisms and what's going on in their life and things like that. One of our mental faculties is that we have a memory. That's cool, right? So I remember, oh, that's Mark, right? That object in my life, it's a talking thing. Oh, it's a person. Oh, yes, and it's Mark, and he wears headphones. I don't know if I've ever seen Mark without his headphones, but all right. For those of you who are with us live, you can see Mark maybe in the side screen there. But I've got some knowingness about that. Okay, so our mental faculties can serve us. Yes, memory is good. I'm glad to have one, right? Otherwise, you show up looking and sounding like some of our politicians here in the United States. But we have a memory. which can serve us, but it can also hinder us. Because have we not had failures? Have we not had blunders and missed the mark, right? Which Stuart was talking with us last week about the definition of sin, right? Not to get biblical again, but what is the true definition of sin? To miss the mark. Okay, well, have we efforted and failed? Yes, yes, and we remember that. I'm suggesting that we have a bit of a selective memory. In fact, that we develop a forgettery to go along with our memory. Like, yes, that was a failure. Okay, I learned from that. Now let me forgive myself of that, or forgive and forget, right? Let me forget that. And let me go on with this new knowledge of what works, what doesn't work, again, very objectively, and say, now we're going to make this new effort, these new combinations, and we're going to expect a much higher recompense, right? A great return, because yesterday sets no precedent. We can, okay, but we perhaps shouldn't look at yesterday and say, here's what I expect for tomorrow, because this is my level of performance yesterday. I'll give you one more story. I had a house that we wanted to buy. And we had a house we were living in at the time, and we were looking sort of dream building, meaning me and my wife. So we're sort of dream building, looking at luxury homes up in the hills above the city and all this. And we found one. Oh my goodness, right? It was in the framing stage. So we were just kind of walking around in there. You walk right through the walls because the walls aren't up yet. It's just framing. Okay. And they got pictures of like the mock-up of here's, what we're expecting the building to be looking like when it's done. And it's going to be about $1 million and whatever. Right. So we're sneaking up into this construction site a couple of times a week. And finally we decide, you know what, I wonder if we could choose like the tile, the color of the wood, the doors, and if we can really customize this house. So we wind up calling the construction company, and hey, we're John and Shanna Lavenia. We've been looking at this house, and they said, yeah, we know. Apparently they have security, right? So they know that we're invading their space, and but we're buyers, right? I mean, so we're there to buy. And so we're going to, in 1 month, we're going to be finalizing the selections of the tile, the wood, the doors, all the customized stuff, right? Based on our specifications. But if you want the house, all you got to do, put down $50K in escrow, and we'll whatever you say is going in the house is what's going in the house. $50K, 1 month. Now, up to that point, we're making about between 20 and 40,000 a month, and our business and our that's gross receipts, okay, and our business and our lifestyle and household expenses and everything else. They may sound like a huge amount of money, but when you're scaling up a business, it's not necessarily a huge amount of money. So we had to come up with an additional 50,000. We were also spendthrifts at the time, right? So we spent money really fast. Like, as fast as you make money, you spend the money, right? So, but now we had a reason to have an additional 50,000, like within a month. And so we decided we were going to have that house. We expected to have that house. In fact, we expected to be able to choose the kind of travertine tile, the 24-inch Peruvian travertine, and the iron doors with the glass, and the dark stained cabinets. I don't want the light wood. I want the dark wood. Right. In fact, these are the handles that go on the cabinets and the drawers, right? I mean, down to every little detail. What kind of sink did you want in the fifth bathroom? And so, we decided this is our house. We expected it to be our house. We made 80,000 in the next 30 days. Handed him his 50 grand. Got the house. So that's just one example of having committed oneself to not just doing the work, but to getting the result. Am I making any sense? We can see the whole picture, the whole movie played out already. We dug the ditches, and yes, it did rain. Yes, it did. I know it didn't rain the other day because you half-ass dug a ditch and whatever. Okay, but now it's going to rain. So forget where the crappy little ditch yesterday. We're going to do this right because we made a decision to. There's no turning back. Let's dig some ditches. Let's do it. You want to see a ditch? I'm going to dig a hole to friggin' China. Let's do it. All right. So here comes the rain. It's going to happen. And when it does, you're not surprised. It's not like you won the lottery. It's not like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. Everything worked out. No, that's not what it's like. This is kind of like the trade-off. The trade-off is that you don't get to be elated right? Like you just got the what was it, Publishers Clearinghouse sweepstakes winnings or something. No, it's deja vu. It's like, of course it just rained. Of course I just got the house. Of course I just had my best month ever. Of course I just made $80,000 in the last 30 days. Of course that just happened. What else would have happened? That's what we're here to do. I expected that. And does that now? Ignorant bystanders may look and say, "Oh, that's how arrogant or conceited or whatever." But no, it's not that. This is a lot of work. It's the hardest work there is, by the way. To think truth, regardless of appearances. It's not raining, and yet I know the truth is that it has to rain. To think truth, regardless of appearances. The tide is low, right? The beach is stinky. There's seaweed washing up here, right? But to think the truth, obviously with the tide, it's a bit easier because there's another law called the law of rhythm. It's going to happen every 12 hours. Okay, but to think truth is the tide is coming in, even though you can't see it. To think truth regardless of appearances. In fact, to quote Wallace Wattles, to think truth regardless of appearances is laborious and requires the expenditure of more energy than any other work that a human is capable of. So that's kind of what you're signing up for with this whole deal. That's the work. And then the effort, right? The getting your hands dirty and doing the thing with whatever vehicle. Well, that's doing what you know how to do with whatever training you've got. And you walk down that path, you could see a little bit further. I don't know what's over the hill. I don't know how it's going to rain. I don't know how we're going to make the money. What did was it Ramana Maharshi or oh no, who's the guy who started the TM movement, Transcendental Meditation? Oh man, I can't believe that.
Maharishi Mahesh Yogi.
That's it, Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. He was talking about this peace project or something he was doing. Thank you, Stuart. Thank you. And some of his disciples or devotees were there, and one of them spoke up and said, Maharishi, where's all the money going to come from? And he said, from wherever it is at the moment. Boom, done. So there's an air of expectation around that, and knowing that you don't have to know everything to start. In fact, for it to bear fruit, I don't know how the corn grows. It's not, in fact, I don't have to know. Isn't that great that we never had to have all the answers? But we do have to have expectation because you get what you expect. And this, I guess, would be a warning because where we started our conversation pre-show, some people were talking about, the COVID and the now ramping up and what I call, the merchants of chaos, right? And I'm very critical sometimes of mass media. And what I see is a very obvious intent to keep you cowed under or to keep you angry or to keep you divided. To me, it's very, very easy to identify. Some people, they're in the thick of it. And they're like, no, we need to be scared, or no, we need to fight, or no, we need to, be something other than what we are intending or expecting to be as, free citizens, as self-determined people. We need to make less of ourselves. In fact, we have to supplicate ourselves to special people or entities or things or phenomena that we don't control. So going back to, I think the original point of this and every conversation we have is cause and effect, right? Is the message you're receiving most often throughout the day one that helps you be cause or one that helps you be effect? I'm not saying that there isn't time to be effect. There's plenty of times. I mean, if you're going to be a leader, for example, you must have the ability to be a good follower as well. Mark, has had this conversation. We talked about loyalty, integrity, different things. Okay. But there's definitely a time to be cause. And if you're looking to have an effect in your life, you damn well better assign cause to yourself more often than you assign effect. That's a self-determined thing to do. I mean, just in the idea that you can choose to ask yourself a question like, what part of this can I be responsible for? Oh, I can dig the ditches. That's a very causative, proactive way to be. One of the books that's going to go on our reading list is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by the late Stephen Covey. It's another mind-blowing book, at least in my opinion, right up there with Think and Grow Rich. So we'll get to that one. But right now, and what I would offer you as a theme for at least today, but perhaps through the rest of the week, what are you expecting? Expectation. Ask and it shall be given you. Not might, shall. How? I don't know how. I don't got the blueprints, man. I don't know. I'm gonna walk up this hill and then I'm gonna see more of the road, right? But I can't see the whole road right now. But I know that it leads to the promised land, so to speak. I hope you can work with that, right? I don't mean to be abstract, okay? But where in your life can you augment, develop expectation of your own reward, of your own actually receiving what you seek? Can you set yourself up? Here's an interesting one. If you're going to assume anything, which assumptions are dangerous, but if you're going to assume anything, can you assume that the universe is conspiring for your good? Can you assume that? That's, for me, that's a tough one, especially with all the crap, all the noise, right? At least here in this group, I will tell you unequivocally, I want you to make a spectacle of yourself. Oh, please, please make piles of money. Health, happiness, relationships, that delicious life. I don't use that word too often. Delicious. Where the hell did that come from, Stuart? All right, I got to stop talking. I'm using words like delicious now. We've got Jane and Neil. We've got Nicola. We've got Caroline. Hi, Jane and Neil. What do you think?
Very impressed today, John. Well, as always, really. But I wanted to come on and share because, well, we made a definite spectacle of ourselves, not just me. We sold, since we started our business, as you know, we sold over 200 products. It goes on and on and on. We yesterday turned over more than £5,000 since the start. That's in less than 2 months. We've got our second check coming in from Amazon, and we'll have over £1,000 in the bank. Obviously, we've still got bills to pay. And then today, which I've been trying to resolve this since the end of August, and this is exactly what you're saying. If you don't believe you can do something, and then I would have given up a long time ago. I actually was trying to sell some of our products which weren't listed as being available in Europe. And I'd been speaking to expert after expert after expert. And finally today, and you're like this, I got hold of an Italian who knew exactly what to do and has corrected me. And I've managed to get a product that we first listed in the UK, one of our first products, actually listed in Germany. And it's just that thing that if you don't keep going and believe that you can resolve it, then you're never going to receive that back. But I didn't give in with this chap, and this chap was exactly the person I needed to speak to, and he gave me all the answers. But all that we've done, as far as I'm concerned, it's still not good enough. And we just need to keep going and believe that we can get there. Because if we stop now, and I know a lot of other people have had lots of problems with their business, but they need to believe that it can be done. We've done it. We're nothing special, but we've believed that we can do it. Today, I don't know whether you can see, but I'll just show you. Can you see the boxes?
I see boxes, but I can't hear you when you move. Maybe your microphone is very
That's
sensitive.
our 10th product going out.
Ah.
So
Wow.
that's going out tomorrow. And the point is, just don't give up, because I know it's not easy. And that's the thing, it's easy to give up.
One thing I will say is Neil never gives up. He's a fighter.
Thank you, Jane and Neil, and congratulations. You guys are truly inspiring others here in the group as well. So thank you for being part of the solution, not only in your own life, but in the lives of all of us. Thanks again. Beautiful.
We're only on the beginning of this journey, John.
Yeah. That's right. This is just the beginning. What do you think, Nicola?
I think that's amazing. Keep them stories coming because it inspires all us. This is probably my favorite subject by far. I could spend all day talking about this. So I think it becomes almost a skill in itself. that, and I'm no expert, but over the past few years, I've started to become more conscious of it and more aware of how I feel when I am in that place. And the trick for me is about, and it's easier said than done, but surrendering control of the outcome. So you've got, you're envisioning the outcome, you set your goals, but then you have to surrender it, like you say, because you don't know what the path is to get there. So if you fixate on every step of the way and on the actual end goal, then that's where you're in the wrong place again. You're not in that place of surrendering. And so for me, like I can almost tell now the difference when I'm in the two states. So if I have truly surrendered that outcome, then everything just starts to happen for me. So support will come, I guess, like you've said there, Neil, that example, was it the Italian kind of, support just starts to come to you from places you just never expect, and odd coincidences will just happen. And to me, that is the universe supporting you on that journey. And it just feels easier, it feels lighter, it feels you're enjoying it more, you're just in a better kind of energetic state, and it then tends to happen in ways you would never expected. Whereas if I fall out of that state, I can sense the difference straight away, and it feels like I'm getting stuck and I'm kind of alone in the journey, and it's getting hard, I'm getting tired, I'm drained. So for me now, it's consciously trying to be aware of the difference in how I feel. And as soon as I feel like I'm moving into that state, I'll take a step back and reconnect with where I'm going and why I'm going, and surrender that control again before I even try and run after it, because I know I'm kind of running in the wrong direction, if that makes sense. So I know I might sound like I've mastered it, I certainly haven't, but that's the difference now, is it's actually a better place to be, I think, when you can get yourself into that state of alignment. So, and I do find as well, it seems easier to do on the more maybe shorter medium term goals. It's the longer term goals which is more difficult to surrender to. So I'm still kind of working on mastering that. But yeah, and I've got similar examples to you. There's a place I bought in Spain about 2 years ago, and I just walked past the building. There was nothing up for sale, but I looked at it and said, that's it. That's exactly the village I want to be in, and that's a property I will buy. I had no idea how whatsoever. There was nothing up for sale, but things just then started to fall into my path because I didn't worry about it. I didn't try and force it. And a place came up for sale a few months later. Agent got in touch with me, and kind of a year later, it was mine. So it does work if you can kind of master that. But so yeah, sorry, I'll stop talking now. But I could talk about this all day. It's definitely one of my favorite subjects.
Well, it's just for you. This was all for you today. So I'm so glad you're here. One of the things you just reminded me of is that when I feel good, I do good. I do better work. I'm in the flow, right? So an elevated emotional state, expectancy, abundance, flourishing and all. It's more of an easy flowing experience now that I'm touching the work. So good stuff. Thank you so much, Nicola. Where's Caroline? Caroline is about to speak, ladies and gentlemen. Here comes Caroline.
Hello. Hi, everyone. So I've missed you all because I had a super stressful work week last week, and I was a bit disconnected from everything, really, from my Amazon journey, from the group here, and from like looking after myself. So I'm really glad to be back. Thank you. And so yeah, this thing about expectation. So for me, obviously, before expectation is the faith. And what came up for me as you were talking, John, was that for me, it's easy for me to have faith in certain areas of my life, like my conditioned mind or whatever part of me that's anxious and worried sort of steps in the way of certain areas of influence, for example, like relationships, or maybe the bigger dreams, like Nicola was just saying. But in other areas, my faith and expectations come really easily. For example, I was living in Portugal a year ago. And I decided in June that I wanted to move back to England. So I booked the ferry on the, with the car on the Eurotunnel to come back for just before Brexit for the 30th of October. And then I needed to come over here to find somewhere to live. So I didn't want to go in the summer because I had a summer business. And so I booked a flight middle of October or first week in October. So I basically had 2 days here to find somewhere to live. And I didn't for a minute think that I wouldn't. And yet to other people are like, oh my God, how could you do that? How could you, you're so lucky or you're so this. And I was just like, well, it doesn't feel lucky. It just feels that was my plan. I knew I had 2 days. I mapped it out and sure, I found, and I'm living there now and it's a lovely, lovely terrace house in a village in Yorkshire. So, so yeah, for me, it's about looking at those areas where I don't so easily have that expectation. That's where I need to do my work. It's probably, yeah, relationships, let's just forget that for the time being, but that's a huge thing for me, I think, relationships, and also the bigger dreams. So the small wins I can expect, but often the bigger dreams are where I think, lacking the meaty faith. So yeah, I just thought I'd share that.
Well, Nicola just
yeah.
mentioned that same sort of a thing where it's easier to perhaps work with shorter or medium term goals than this big grand vision that you have, which may does take, more time to come to fruition. Just like the tide, you got 12 hours, it's going to work, right? The tide's coming in. But yeah, impatience, maybe that's another thing. Of course, we're going to be talking about faith tonight. So,
but it's also the dream big thing, isn't it? Like some people are bigger dreamers, and that's been one of my issues, that I need to open that valve to the big dream more and more. So thank you.
Me too. Yeah, let's do it. Thank you. We got Stuart. We got Wayne. What's going on, Stuart?
Good morning. Happy Monday, everybody. Wow, great topic today, John. I keep thinking that, we just keep having the one discussion, right? And there's many different aspects of it, but I appreciate the discussion of expectations. And of course, immediately I go to assumptions, and that just like, and some of you guys have heard me say internal versus external assumptions. I think that we could apply that same concept to expectations, right? Internal versus external. And I think that our internal expectations or our internal assumptions, right, is a reflection of our self-image, and that concept of how do we bring congruence between our conscious and our subconscious minds. And I think that is a big key in terms of belief and faith, right? Because you really have to believe something 100%. And that concept of, we're telling ourselves affirmations, or we're assuming states about ourselves. And until we really believe that in our subconscious, there's always a little bit of interplay going on there. I think, like Nicola was saying, that there's this challenge between assuming or expecting something and to not be so attached to the outcome. And I think that there's an interesting little dance that we need to do in order to create and manifest in our lives, and at the same time be able to go with the flow and not set ourselves up for disappointment or perceived failure, things like that. Another way of looking at this I think is interesting is expectation is planning, or can lead to planning, right? And if we expect cycles in nature, right, and that's kind of my wheelhouse, but cycles in business and life and things like that, then we can plan accordingly, whether we know or understand the cycles of drought or famine or flood or abundance or scarcity or whatever those things may be, we can plan accordingly. I think a great example of that is we're coming up on Q4 right now for e-commerce or for everything, right? I think when you have true expectations of something, when you're talking about a true internal expectation that you believe 100,000% with all your being, then that's where you're talking about faith and belief. And then the other day I mentioned something about loyalty to the unseen is faith, right? It's there, even if you can't see it, even if you can't touch it, right? And I think that ties into the whole act as if principle, right? So if we expect something then we act as if it's going to happen. And I think tonight, if I remember correctly, in chapter 3, there's some segments on acting as if and having faith. And then the last couple of things I want to say, you mentioned something about the creative process, right? And that, or at least you were talking about life cycles. And to me, I go to conception, gestation, and birth, right? And I think, and tying into what you were saying about thinking is the hardest work you can do, right? And this concept of having an idea and bringing it out of the ethers, we like to say that, out of the ethers and into the physical world, right? And it takes a lot of energy. It takes a constant feeding, right, if you would, right? A nursing or constant nutrition of energy, of ideas, of thought. We think things that come and go, and the things that kind of go don't necessarily have so much power, right? But it's the things that we constantly think about, good or bad, that tend to manifest in our lives, right? So if we have an idea or burning desire, we're always thinking about it, we're always feeding it, and those things are much more likely to come to fruition. And then the last thing I'll mention is that you referenced the biblical story, and I think that the digging of the ditches, I'm not sure I recall, but I remember the smacking of the stone, if you recall the story, right? And so this is, Moses is leading the Israelites through the desert, and I always love wandering through the wilderness stories wherever they come from. So,
Of course you do.
to make.
Yeah, right.
But I think there was something where, God tells Moses to speak to the stone, and the stone will give forth water for the people. And Moses smacks the stone with his stick, and the water comes out. But this is actually the reason in the Old Testament why Moses is not allowed into the promised land, and that they have to wander around the desert until Moses dies, so that then they can go to the promised land. The sin of hubris. So maybe there's something in there about expectation. I'll have to think a little bit about that. Cheers, you guys. Happy Monday.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Stuart. Good times. We're going to go to Wayne, then Therese, and then I think we may be wrapping up. Hey, Wayne.
Good morning. Happy Monday. Happy Monday. So a couple of things that came to mind. John really enjoyed the conversation here. First one, and speaking of being ready, building the ditches and the expectation that rain would come, reminded me of an experience I had. I was flying back down to Brisbane from Los Angeles when I was working down under. And there was a Hollywood director who had a pretty big film out in the theaters at the time that just happened to be sitting in the seat beside me. And so we had a little bit of conversation, and I was trying to get a little project I had going at the time. And he shared with me some of his experience sort of leading him to where he had gotten to. And something that's always stuck with me that he said to me, he said, the door will always open and you need to be ready for it when it does. And, that's, to me, that was the digging of the ditches pieces. And, when he was sharing sort of some of his background, he was talking about some of the things that he'd done to get himself ready and to be in a position that when opportunity was there, that he was able to take advantage of that opportunity. And it kind of got me thinking afterwards when I got off the plane and I was thinking about this project and sort of how I was going to proceed is, well, if the door is going to open, why don't I go knock on a few doors in the meantime? Might speed that opening process up a little bit. So, just taking advantage of or making opportunity, looking for opportunity, seeking it actively. The other thought that's come to mind when you're talking about the cycles and the tides, my grandmother spent most of her life on the east coast of Canada in the Bay of Fundy. And the Bay of Fundy is known it was for the biggest tides in the world. So at their peak, the tides can vary by up to 50 feet. And so the fishermen in that area, the scallop fishermen and the lobster fishermen. So the village that my grandmother lived in, these fishermen's boats would be along the jetties. And when the tide goes out, they're sitting on the mud. And that's, the jetties are probably 20 feet tall and it's a solid kind of pole wall. And so when the tide goes out, the boats sit down on the mud and they've got special cradles that they sit down into. So the fishermen can only go out on the high tide. And so they need to prepare, they need to be ready. They need to work within that environment. So the thing that I think of there is I spent nearly 20 years on the east coast of Australia, living over there, and the tides there at their peak vary from about 6 to 7 feet. So significant difference. So it's a little bit of a different thing for those fishermen when they're going out as far as their planning. But the other thing that I became aware of down there is as the tides run out, some fishermen fish on the outgoing tide. So because there's certain fish, there's certain things that they can catch on the outgoing tide. And then there's other fish that they catch on the incoming tide. So the environment influences sort of what's going on around us sometimes, and depending where we are, or the landscape, whatever it is in life. But by learning those cycles, we can actually, it doesn't matter if it's an outgoing cycle or an incoming cycle, there's opportunity that's there for us that we can certainly learn to work with and actually even excel with. So those are just some thoughts that came to mind. And yeah, I appreciate the conversation this morning.
Thank you, Wayne. I knew you'd appreciate the metaphor of tide. And yeah, we can work with the law rather than fight it, right? We know that's going to happen. Oh, fantastic. Let's work with that. Thank you, brother. And thank you for that talk last night. I was glad I was able to attend live. So that was really
Great.
cool. So we've got Therese and then Joe and Gina, and I think we're going to wrap up. Hey, Therese.
Hi, everyone. It's nice to see everyone today. Wayne, sorry I missed you again last night. Got to get that figured out so I can join in and listen to some of your profound thoughts. In terms of our topic today, very interesting. I was just remembering back when I was looking at apartments. I did a couple of Zoom calls, like our Zoom meetings from I set it up so that I could do a tour of an apartment during the time slot that we had for a call. And I remember sitting there and on the floor in an apartment in this building and showing everyone the apartment I was in. It was kind of on the pre-call. And so I was casting the want, I guess is a way to say it. I was seeing where I wanted to be or what I wanted. And now I'm in the building. So it's pretty profound. And I think, everyone's added so much to the topic that is so true. It's, see what you want, get out of your own way, lay the groundwork, and believe and have faith. I guess those are huge for me. And I think, this group and all this work that we've been doing together is really just building that muscle, that mental muscle, I think, which is definitely what I needed. Somewhere along the line, I got off that path, and it was certainly the way that I've done my life, previously, but I got off the path for about 15 years, I feel like. And I was that mouse chasing the cheese for a really long time. And so I just think, I just want to say thank you. I don't know, it's been so profound. And you're right. I've been digging the ditches and doing the work and seeing it and believing it. And every day this continues to build my muscle. So my mental muscle. Thank you.
Thank you, Therese. So glad you're here, my friend. Always a pleasure to see you. And with that, I believe we have Joe and or Regina.
Hi, guys.
There she is.
Happy Monday.
Both of them. We get them both.
Oh, no. Who's first? Who's on first?
No, we get them both. We get Joe and Gina together. I wasn't sure until I saw you who was going to be there, and we've got the bonus. We've got Joe and Regina. So right.
There we go. Thank you so much. Happy Monday, everybody. Well, Therese took every word out of my mouth pretty much, and she's always such an eloquent speaker anyway, but she just, every thought that was in my head just popped it out of her mouth. So that was pretty cool. I do want to add that on occasion, especially right now, I'm recalled on The Secret, and expectation just falls right in the middle of that. And I'm just so passionate about that movie or that show or that book. And I find myself that, like, for instance, with the businesses that we have gotten into recently, you see it and you visualize that it's there, and you see yourself active in it and reaping the rewards of it and everything. And then you start taking the steps to get where you're going. And as long as you're on the path of seeing it at the end of the path, you know that it's going to work. Sometimes, like Therese said, you end up down a side path and sometimes that path doesn't pass as quickly as you'd like it to. But if you keep the end result at the end of the picture, it's going to come, and hopefully we'll reap some fruition from it. I hope anyway. We're looking forward to it. Joe and I have taken on a little bit more than I ever expected to take on, but 6 months gave us a lot of time to think. And in those 6 months, we couldn't, I'm not the person to sit by and just wait for something to happen. I have to have a plan B and a plan C, and that's kind of me. So, you know, now we've got all these plans going, and I've gotten back to work a little bit with the catering, the start to open up a tiny, tiny bit. So now I'm juggling like 4 different businesses at one time. And it's like, oh, so you don't see me as much as normal. Unfortunately, I can't get onto a lot of the extra calls, but Joe stands in for me. And hopefully he participates as much as he thinks he would like to participate. He's very, very shy. And when he does speak up, I'm so very proud of him. So today he doesn't feel like he has anything he has to say. So I'm just putting my 2 cents in because I feel it's important to contribute. And thank you everybody for your contributions. Have a wonderful day. And I love you all. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Thank you, Regina. Thank you, Joe, as well. Just Joe's presence here has caused increase for everyone. Thank you, sir. All right. So I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up with that. We are almost 51 minutes in. We're going to get together again with our e-commerce work group. If you've got a topic or suggestion or questions that you would like discussed, either in our e-commerce work group or in our tech talk, which happens at noon on Fridays in England, go into our Facebook group and make some noise about that. Squeaky wheel gets the oil, so squeak. And then, of course, Chapter 3, Faith, Think and Grow Rich, tonight, 9 p.m. Eastern U.S. time. We'll see you guys there. Thanks for being here today. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.